and welcome to this special Social Suplex once-off broadcast. I'm Sam Brown from the AEW Match Guide podcast. Thanks for joining me. Look, if you haven't heard my voice before, I'm one of the regular hosts here on the Social Suplex for the AEW Match Guide podcast. It comes out every second Wednesday, the Wednesdays that Trish and Sarah don't post. But we have a special podcast here today where I'm interviewing a special guest, someone that we've recently partnered with. The guest is Dickie Bird. He's from the wrestling merch site, Chopped Tees. Now, if you missed our live stream that went on last weekend, you should absolutely check it out. It's on the Social Suplex YouTube page. And it was a special announcement. We were announcing this merch line that we have created alongside Chopped Tees and Dickie from there. And we thought it would be a great opportunity as a follow-up to the live stream, which, as I said, you should check out. I'll put the link in the podcast description. But we thought it'd be a really interesting chance to have a chat with Dickie, get to know a little bit about him, introduce him to you guys, part of the Social Suplex crew, but also speak to him about wrestling, but also what it's like to run a business in the wrestling industry. I know we're all here on the Social Suplex podcast network. If you're listening, you are probably well in the weeds and deep into wrestling nerddom and into the wrestling business. So we thought it would be interesting to have a chat with Dickie, someone who has gone out there. He's having a crack. He's putting something on the line, and he's got a business in the wrestling industry, and he's graciously decided to give us some time and agreed to give us some time to do this special interview. Of course, if you haven't seen it yet, you can go to the Chopped Tees website. It's chopped-tees. And they actually do merch for a number of podcasts, not just the Social Suplex, but podcasts and media personalities. There's Post Wrestling, Grapple, WrestleNomics, all great brands, and we're really proud to be partnering with them. If you'd like to join me, and we'll welcome Dickie Bird to the Social Suplex podcast network. How are you going today, Dickie?
Yeah, good. You said you're out of your comfort zone. I might be a little bit out of my comfort zone too. So, we can, chill out and have a chat about Chopped Tees.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a real buzz when we got the message from you saying that, I believe it was Rich and Jeremy who got the first message, and then they communicated with us, linked us up with you. It was a real buzz when we found out you were keen to partner with us, and it's been a fun process over the last, say, 2 months or so, throwing ideas back and forth. I guess I've got to ask firstly, what's it been like on the other side of the coin? I've only, seen it for myself and, me peppering you with ideas and stuff. What's it been like on the other side of the situation for you, Dickie?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really good. I had a blast doing the project. I believe it was almost 3 months almost 3 months to the day that I had a meeting with Rich and Jeremy. And, it's kind of one of those weird things where, look, I'll be honest, I was not familiar with the Social Suplex network, and I'd only seen a few maybe like retweets of shows from people I follow in the past, but didn't really, that stuff turns up, you don't really know, necessarily what it is. So I didn't really dive into it, but I was on Martin Bushby's charity stream, which was he hosted on the Poison Rana network as a 12-hour stream, and he had asked Trish and Sarah and the girls from Tunnel Talk to be on, and I was on because I do a show with Martin once a month on the Poison Rana network. About the lives and times of Jonathan Good, also known as John Moxley and Dean Ambrose. Martin would be annoyed if I didn't plug it there. But Trish and Sarah were on before me, so I had got ready to go on, and they were chatting, and I was like, yes, I've seen this Trish and Sarah turn up on my Twitter before. I've not listened to them, but I'm listening to them now, and it sounds actually like a fairly good, like the chemistry's there and all those sorts of things there, and it's like, okay. And then later on, I went back earlier in the stream, when it was on in the middle of the night for you and I, Sam, and I listened to Tunnel Talk, and And interesting. But the more interesting thing was that they mentioned that they were part of a network. And my site was built, Chop Teas was built with networks in mind. So it kind of piqued my interest a little bit about, all right, what is the Social Suplex Network? And I spent a bit of time trying to find reasons why you wouldn't be a fit, say, for instance. And the more that I kind of dived into all of the shows like your show, Sam, and even Imp's WWE Adventure, I was like, I really like all of this stuff. And everybody on these shows, you can tell that they share similar values to mine, which is, not being crazy, I guess, is the easiest way. I mean, it's the wrestling.
Only sometimes.
Well, I mean, there's levels to this shit,
That's
right?
true.
Like
Yeah,
when we talk about the IWC, what you are referring to crazy is not crazy. And yeah, and the other thing too is that all of the shows had a visual brand. Even if that doesn't necessarily mean podcast artwork or anything, it's more like you have a thing that you're doing. You have, if I was a designer, which I am, and I was going into a project to design something for someone, which I did, you need something to kind of work off of. And there's lots of shows out there that it's kind of just, hey, we're just talking about wrestling or something, and it's not really, there's not a hook. There's nothing unique necessarily about it. But every single show on the Social Suplex Network had a hook. So I was kind of like, all right, well, I need to try and track down these people, and I need to present this. I had a lovely PowerPoint presentation that I'd already done up, a few months back and stuff. And, I presented it to Jeremy and Rich. But, the truth is that you guys just made it so easy for me. You have a Discord, which everyone should check out. What's the link? Discord.com/social suplex, or it's in the
podcast description.
There you go. I was about to say, I'm sure it's in the show notes.
There's a lot of numbers and random symbols, yes. I think.
Everyone should join it, but it made my life easy because, I guess it was just a single point of contact for everybody, and then being able to kind of have DMs with anybody who needed to talk to me about something privately, like you and I did for a lot of the process. And then of course there's a wealth of information for me in the rest of that Discord server that I can use for the process that I went through. So look, there's been some brands. I won't name anyone because it's not a bad thing. Everyone's different.
You don't want to get aggregated. You don't want to get aggregated, mate.
I wonder if it would be post wrestling that aggregates me. That would be fun. That would be very fun. Andrew Thompson, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But there have been some where you just work off email, and it's kind of a very back and forward process. It's not really kind of fluent, which again it's not bad or anything, but what we did with Social Suplex, and I say we as in just me on the Chop Tea side and the rest of you who are the hosts of the show, is we did this at a very large scale, really. Like there were over 70 products that we put out, and that would be hard to do just through email. So that level of collaboration, whether it's Discord or Teams or Slack or something like that, is why those things are very important in business, and I do champion them. To answer your question in a very long-winded way, I mean the process of working with you guys was really a breeze. And I think on the other thing on my side as well is that I'd gotten the company to a point where I was very comfortable in my approach to all of this now. So, in the very early days, and even when I started with Poison Rana, it was just very, like I said to the guys at Poison Rana, it's like, you have to brace yourself because it might be a bit of a rocky road on how I want to approach everything. But yeah, by the time we got to you guys, it was like, no, I know exactly how the approach should go. And we do this, that, and the next thing. And
well, thank you to Poison Rana for taking the bumps for us. We really appreciate that. So we could have a nice smooth sailing.
They got something out of it too. So
okay,
they're the early adopters.
The percentage is a bit higher, is it?
It's something. The percentage, it's something like that.
Yeah, two things that you said that I love there, Dickie. Firstly, I became a Discord user because of the Social Suplex Discord. So if you're not part of the Social Suplex Discord, jump in. It's a great community. You probably won't get to talk about tease with me and Dickie and the other hosts because that's our private thing, but there's plenty of other great channels where you can chat with all of the hosts we've got here on Social Suplex. All of the podcasts have got their own little space where you can talk about the podcast and sort of the goings on around the podcast. And then we've got, broader threads for all the different kinds of wrestling promotions out there. We've got one that I'm forever in, probably to my mind's detriment, is the Grifter Tweets thread, where just some of the worst things that you can see are posted so that you don't have to go to Twitter and expose yourself to them, but you can still kind of see what's going on out there. And then everything up to the Cookout channel, which is where, we trade recipes and photos of food. So yeah, great place to be. There'll be a link in the podcast description. So if you're not part of the Social Suplex Discord, you can get in there. But another thing you said, Dickie, that I loved, and this is something I loved. And look, to the people out there, look, this isn't just going to be an hour of me and Dickie just shelling our merch and putting ourselves over at how great these merch designs are, but they are pretty good. We're going to talk about like more broad stuff. But one thing that I think you said there that you picked up on about the network, which I'm quite proud of actually, and I know all of the hosts love, is that even though we often cover similar things, like I think we've got about 4 or 5 podcasts that talk about AEW, we all have a different way of doing it. Like the Trish and Sarah podcast is vastly different to, say, One Nation Radio, which is vastly different to Tunnel Talk, which is really different to All Things Elite, which is different again to what I do on the AEW Match Guide. And we've got a lot of different voices out there. And I love that you immediately picked up on that. And I also love how you represented that when it came to the design table. For myself and you, I was throwing different ideas at you. I've kind of got like a bit of an idea in my mind of what I want it to look like, but I'm not much of a designer. I'm pretty piss poor at Photoshop, to be brutally honest. But you're able to pick up on that. And then also from, I guess, listening and knowing the things that I'm into, we're able to put together like this amazing shirt that's a throwback to like vintage records and Rock World Tour shirts, which is something you and I never talked about, but somehow you just picked up from, listening to the show and sort of exposing yourself to me and the things that I like. And you did that with all of them, and all of the different shows and sort of captured a little bit of what we're about in what you put out there and what you pitched back to us when you came back to the design table. I know I was completely blown away by some of the things that you came up with, Dickie.
Thanks, Sam. I mean, that's just over 20 years of, I shouldn't say design experience. It's more like over 20 years of working as a designer. It's not just about being a good designer. I wouldn't even say that I'm really that talented. I mean, you have Chris Things on your network, who is just an insanely talented artist, and then a lot of other people who, very, very good at whether it is graphic design or even motion graphic design and so forth. But I was thrown into the deep end of trying to figure out like how to solve problems with design and how to appeal to people and understanding people. So there was that sort of thing. And so that's the approach that I've had to take with, like with your stuff, with the Social Suplex Network stuff, is, look, if I came to you guys and I just said, all right, guys, what do you want? It's kind of like a wet fart, because it's like, well, why are you asking me? Like, if I knew what I wanted, I could just put it up on the Pro Wrestling Tees store that you guys had, right? The reason that, and look, I'm maybe, I'm not speaking for Jeremy, say for instance, but I'm just going to make a pretty, obvious assumption is that the reason that the Social Suplex Pro Wrestling Tees site is very old and contains t-shirts of shows that I don't even think exist anymore is because you are expected to do everything yourself. It is a self-service platform, and that works for them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if I just came to you guys and were like, hey, do you want to put t-shirts up on my site, and then just told you to figure it out all by yourself, well, then what am I doing differently, kind of thing. So that was sort of the I have to do it like this. And it's not such a bad job, Sam, because my job is basically to listen to people's podcasts and get inside their head and understand them as much as humanly possible. I'm not going to say that I know everything about everybody, but you can definitely tell what people's personalities are, obviously, by just listening to them have a podcast. I mean, you can tell.
It's one of the great things about podcasts is how long they can run for and how people do put themselves out there on there. It's one of the reasons I love podcasts so much, is because you do get a sense of the person and the person you're listening to, because you're listening to them for so long sometimes, and they're having conversations, and they're talking about all sorts of different topics, even though obviously we predominantly talk about wrestling. Sometimes it can encompass things. You find out people's political beliefs. You find out what they like and don't like outside of wrestling. And yeah, you can learn a lot about people by listening to their podcasts. And you obviously did that and brought that to what you pitched to us.
It's funny because I'll just say there's some of it's like a kind of a psychological deconstruction, kind of like you've sort of mentioned, like trying to understand the person. And then there's a lot of like more obvious stuff. Like I was listening to an episode of Tunnel Talk, and they were talking about Chris Jericho's new Learning Tree University shirt or something. And I think that maybe Ali was just saying, I would buy that, but if it was in like a nice green color. And I'm just like writing down, just like, all right, shirts nice need to be colored for Tunnel Talk, no black shirts, and all this sort of stuff. So
I think I said that directly too, actually, at some point. I don't want a black shirt. I don't want to have a black shirt. Although in the stream, I think someone in the chat asked if they could do the reverse colors of mine with a black shirt rather than white or whatever. No black shirts.
I mean, but this is the thing. It's like, and this is the other thing, Sam, that it's like you're not going to get this with other merchandise sites who just say, send us your design, tell us what shirt to go on. That design that I put together for you, it's not going to work on a black shirt.
No.
The reason is just because of the process of printing. And so a white shirt, you're going to find that, and you'll see this because you have it. It feels like that all the colors and the print and stuff is dyed into the white shirt. Like it's actually embedded in there. The color is, being dyed that color kind of thing. Whereas a black shirt or any other shirt that is a color apart from white, it needs to be almost like layered on top. And so it's this thin film that actually sits on top of the shirt. It can't be dyed into the shirt because the shirt's already dyed. It's already dyed a color. And yeah, so like when I put it together, I was like, holy shit, there's 50 of these matches with fucking, with the
with lettering. Yeah, we've both got to check if there's any spelling mistakes.
Yeah, which there were, but we fixed that. And it's just like, looking at it, I'm like not only yours was the only shirt that I personally ordered beforehand as a tester to really make sure that text was legible, which it is. But yeah, I was like, this can't really go on the other process. Now, what I'm saying here is just, I know the level of thought that I put into this is a benefit for my company, and God bless every other, merch company out there in this space. You don't get that. You get, send me your stuff, and if it turns out like crap, that's your fault, not mine. I can't live like that.
Mm.
I will take responsibility if something doesn't turn out right, because I should be able to come back to you and say that's not going to work or something like that, and then figure out a solution to that problem.
Mm. Let's move the conversation a little bit. We are, of course, a wrestling podcast network, and you came to us because you're part of a wrestling podcast network as well. So I often ask people on the AEW Match Guide how they got into AEW, because obviously the podcast is about AEW. But I thought I'd ask you more broadly. You know, what's your story with wrestling, Dickie? You obviously you live in Australia now. You're born in New Zealand. How did you come across wrestling and get into wrestling growing up?
Yeah, shout out to anyone from New Zealand who might be listening to this, because they might pop for me mentioning that I got into watching WCW on a Friday night at 10 p.m. on TV2. It was a Monday Nitro, sadly a 1 hour condensed version where the hosts was Larry Zbyszko and Scott Hudson. It was not good, but every 4 weeks they would. This is the thing. They would have 4 Nitros, and then the following Friday they would put the pay-per-view on, and it would be the full thing. So it would be like, oh my God, like
that's pretty good.
I'm used to just, it's good, but I'll tell you what. Did you just hear what I said? Every 4 weeks you get 4 Nitros, and then the 5th week is the pay-per-view, and then it goes back to 4 weeks of Nitro. So every month WCW got delayed by a week, because of course it's supposed to just be 4 weeks, sort of thing. So what I was watching, and I didn't know at the time, but what I was watching was at least 4 months behind what was actually happening in the US. But this was sort of early. This was 98. So this was early days of the internet. And I think I eventually I had to really dig around, to be honest, to find something that would tell me what was going on. And so by the time Goldberg lost to Kevin Nash, I think I already knew that was going to happen, sort of thing. But yeah, I fell out of it in 2001 after Vince bought WCW. I wasn't really watching actually as much as I was, because WCW was really bad. 1999 killed me. I don't even think I remember too much about 2000 and 2001. I think I had switched over to WWE quite a bit because, oh my God, I sound like them. WWF. That's what it was called at the time. I'll call it that. And let's see. I was still kind of watching it. But then when Vince bought WCW, my mind exploded with possibilities, and they fumbled the bag, obviously, as we all know. And after that, I was just like, I don't really care about this anymore. You know, I'm into girls now or whatever. And, and just, lived my life. And then I came back in 2015, basically when the network launched here in Australia. And I'd started listening to The Lapsed Fan. They'd kind of launched their podcast as a companion piece to the network. And then when the network launched, I was kind of checked it out. And I was like, oh, all the old WCW pay-per-views and all that sort of stuff. And I'll tell you what, it was quite the shock when I found out about Chris Benoit.
Oh, wow. You'd never heard.
No, and Eddie as well.
Gosh.
I basically had to be basically just Google dead wrestlers, and then it would just be a website that would have a long list, and I'll be like, oh fuck, Test is dead, what the fuck,
the late noughties were not a fun time.
Yeah, and I was out. I was totally out. But me being me, when I get back into something, I got back into something. So I've caught up and more. Basically, I've spent this last 10 years really pretty much engrossed in the history of kind of what I missed.
What was catching your eye in 2015?
Well, like I said, it was just that the network came about, and I guess it came about around the time the Royal Rumble was on. And the Royal Rumble is usually around the same time.
Wow, what a time to get into a Royal Rumble.
Oh, well, yeah, no, for sure. But the Royal Rumble's still a draw, right? Because it's just at least something happens. And, you'll appreciate this, Sam. Sometimes the Royal Rumble falls on Australia Day. So you
Yes.
you have the day off work to watch it at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I watched the Royal Rumble live because I had bought the network. I, subscribed to the network for the old pay-per-views because I wanted to watch Road Wild 1998 and with Jay Leno in the main event. And then, yeah, I just it was like, oh, you can watch this for free. Like, you don't need to pay for it. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay. And then I just started falling into it and really was like, the Royal Rumble. It's like, who the fuck are all these people? And then you sort of like try and figure it out. But then, yeah, it's still then eventually figured out like this is not good stuff.
Oh,
that
The
they're
Rock's
doing.
back. Oh, they're booing him for some reason. That's odd. Man, it's funny hearing how people got back into things because it's
Yeah.
particularly when you hear a story like that. I mean, I almost similarly to you, the first wrestling I got into was in the late noughties. I missed it when I was in high school, and this was my first year of uni, and it was a Sunday afternoon. I was a bit bounced out. Had a few on a Saturday night, and I was sitting around watching Wide World of Sports, and they had Dave Bautista on it. And I was like, who's this fella? I've never watched, like, he stands out compared to the other people they have on there. And he was advertising that they were starting a show, SmackDown Afterburn, which was a 1 hour condensed version of SmackDown. And the thing that got me into, like, the first match I can remember being like emotionally into was Dave Bautista versus the Great Khali.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can tell I was born to be into wrestling if, like, watching that is what got me into wrestling.
Yeah, if you're into big dudes, I mean,
yeah,
there you go. Like that, how you can't really
I'm-
get much bigger than those two.
Yeah, so, and well, that got me into things, and then various things happened. I kind of dropped out again, and then came back in 2014. So similar time to what you did. I was very into Dean Ambrose. I was interested hearing, as you said, you've got a podcast about John Moxley. Dean Ambrose, and now John Moxley is he's probably my favorite wrestler of all time at this point. Is he sort of your fan linchpin as well, or what's it been like for you, I guess, from 2015 onwards? What's caught your eye, and what have you been following?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not like a normal wrestling fan in the sense that I'm very much interested kind of on the business side of things. I think I feel like I'm quite similar to Brandon Thurston in the way that he consumes wrestling. Like, I always like watch his shows with John Pollock, and John will say something like, oh, did you watch the show? And he'll say, I had it on in the background. And that's me. Like, I sort of have stuff on in the background, but I consume everything else around it, which is a lot of it, like podcasts and on Twitter and everything like that, and interviews, people might do. John has done a very few amount of interviews, but they are always very, very impactful. And
he's a very different kind of bloke. He's a different kind of guy.
He's very real, and it's kind of like when I speak, you listen, because I only speak once or twice, sort of thing. But I guess the reason that I'm on the show is because I have a lot of respect for Martin Bushby, who is, I would say he was the host, and myself and Brandon from New Jersey are the co-hosts. We're the idiots, and he's the Martin's the serious one. And Martin, asked me to be a part of it, and to be honest, I would have probably said no if it was like, oh, we're going to do a podcast about Bryan Danielson, because it's like, I know so many more people who know so much more about Bryan Danielson than I do, to the point where it would be laughable for me to go on. The people who have followed his career from like Dragon Gate USA and all these sorts of things, it's like, I can't, compete with that. When he said John Moxley, I was kind of like, I sort of have an interesting take on this, because remember I said I started watching in 2015. So look, the first match I saw him have was the Last Man Standing match at the Royal Rumble with Kevin Owens. And it was very good. It was a very good match.
Great match.
This man declined month after month after month. He just went down and down and down and down, and then he'd get like a little bit of a bump because they put the championship on him, but they did it because Roman got popped for where he had a wellness
Steroids.
violation.
Yep.
Well, I say wellness violation. I don't want to make any some allegedly, but like he really, like, they whittled him down into nothing, to the point where when he left, I just thought this guy's just going to go to TNA or something and just kind of do whatever, and because to me, like, the company had basically destroyed this guy in my eyes. I did not know what he was capable of. And he's really the first wrestler that I've seen kind of leave that company as a comedy mid-carder and immediately kind of turn up as a main eventer somewhere. And, it's proof that the wrestling industry is, well, it's not proof the wrestling industry is fake, but it's proof that because the wrestling industry is fake, it means that you as the booker, you can make somebody a main eventer. I mean, obviously a lot more people saw a lot more in him than I did, but as soon as he came into AEW and started feuding with Kenny and all this sort of stuff, I was just like, okay, you've sold me. Like, that's what you need to do. That's what wrestling companies need to do. I'm so sick and tired of them, just being like, oh, well, no one will buy it, and da 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 da. It's like you make them buy it. That's the whole kind of point. And then in January, I guess it was October of 2021 when the news came out that he was going into rehab. It was kind of I remember just being quite shaken about it, because it was sort of like I had started to really, he had turned things around, and I, from being the pits, and I was like, oh shit, this is a real person with a real problem that he's dealing with, and it kind of affected me a little bit, and then yeah, I guess when he came back and cut that promo, and not just cutting the promo, I mean the promo was really good, but it was what I saw, like the online response and people saying, yeah, I suffer with this too, and like, we need to, this is how we need to deal with it. We need to, beat the shit out of our demons, and all these sorts of things. And what he talked about, wearing his heart on his, I'm trying to think, he wears his scars. That's what he was saying. Like he has lots of scars on the outside, but he's also got lots on the inside. And it's all this stuff that, even if you're not suffering with alcohol dependency, you can relate a lot to this and stuff like that. And he's just, he's very, very good at kind of, we always have this joke about like wrestling as cinema. He's the one who's really kind of trying to do that and do it kind of properly, the way that a movie can make you feel emotional, scared, happy, whatever it is. He's really trying to do that through his characters. And, I'd argue what he's doing at the moment is very much, along the same lines.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Even just the way he paints pictures, like in that promo you're referencing, he paints a picture of like a demon hanging over him and sort of tormenting him, and him having to confront it. And yeah, that promo, I cannot talk too much. I cannot talk enough about that promo. I love that promo. And yeah, in the end of 2021, we had the Eddie Kingston Players Tribune article as well, which was talking about his mental demons that he'd sort of gone to battle with and been able to overcome and was constantly dealing with. And John Moxley talking about openly about that and going to rehab and what that meant to him as well. Very positive sorts of things. And it has been heartening to see that online. Look, I wanted to sort of swing to talking about, you're into, like, obviously you're getting into wrestling. How long were you thinking about setting up a wrestling t-shirt, a wrestling merchandise store for, Dickie?
Oh, man, it sort of goes back a wee while before a lot of this, and I had a previous kind of working relationship with Post Wrestling and the boys at Poison Rana, Braden and Davey, just doing more like video stuff. It was COVID, and they were put on these game shows and stream them on Twitch, and they were very, very popular. And they were sort of like pay-per-views. They would have matchups between certain people in the community and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of jumped in and started making some motion graphics and video packages and promo pieces for the, so there's like, we did this one kind of WrestleMania themed one that was just incredibly epic, and that sort of was how I kind of started getting in with them and with post wrestling. I think I made an intro video for a daily news show. Rest in peace. What a crazy idea, doing a daily news show for those guys. But I think the thing that happened was, like, I always really wanted to do something to help support the podcasts that I listen to. I do financially through Patreon and so forth. But you can only give so much money, right? And I felt like I had some time. However, I had started to kind of get burnt out with doing video stuff, and even doing design stuff to a degree. It's something that's just, it's still a fire that burns inside of me, but it's not something that I think I need to do it a little bit and then take a break. So all the stuff that we've done for the Social Suplex Network, I'm glad that I'm sort of now in a period where I'm like, I can pivot to something else that is absolutely not related to design. So I didn't want to do that. And the other thing too is, like, what I was doing with them, it was really hard to quantify any kind of value as well. So it's like, okay, so, like, I make a video or something that they maybe like can play at the start of their live streams or something. How do you quantify what the value of that is? Is it responsible for increasing viewers? Is it responsible for increasing their Patreon subscribers? You don't know. There's no real way, especially in this kind of avenue, to really understand or find out. It's more of just that maybe, hey, they have cool videos and stuff, or the cool graphics or whatever. But yeah, what does that really mean? So I didn't really want to push on with that more, because the other thing too is, like, they wanted to pay me for it as well. And it was sort of like, but what are you getting for this, sort of thing. I didn't really understand the economy of it. So I started kind of thinking about what is it that I could do. And it was Braden from Poison Rana who sort of said, you should think about, like, just designing stuff for t-shirts, and stuff, and selling them on your own store. He knows some people who do that and do very well and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't really care about the money or anything. I just wanted to do something, but I didn't want it to just be like my stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't really want to do. One of which is, like, go online and, like, hustle and sell my own stuff. I'm not a salesperson. I don't even want to say I'm a bad salesperson. I'm just not a salesperson. So I didn't like the idea of the fact that it's all well and good, like, designing some t-shirts, but you have to be able to put them out there. And it sounded like a lot of work. So that was February of 2023. I couldn't stop thinking about it, though. And so this was the thing that happened from February 2023 to December of 2023, when I launched the company. Was, at the end of the day, I really wanted to do it, but I had some roadblocks, and I spent all those months, I guess, trying to solve those roadblocks. And so, like, one of the key things was going to be, okay, well, maybe it shouldn't be my stuff, or my stuff can be on there too, but if it's, kind of following on from a Pro Wrestling Tees business model, in the sense that you get other people's stuff on your site and they do the selling, they do the salesperson thing, just because they have a platform and they already have people listening, sort of thing. And what I've found, doing this for 10 months already, is that is the number one most effective way to drive traffic to the site, is actually the hosts mentioning it on the show. Always see a bump when that happens, more so than Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. So I didn't have a platform at the time, sort of thing. So that is already proving that is a better avenue. So there was that. And then there was just, like, a lot of other things over the course of, like, 11 months that I would come up with a reason not to do it. Sort of like I did with Social Suplex Network. I was trying to find reasons not to do it. Except in this case, I found plenty of reasons for the reason not to launch this company, but then I solved them all. Things like I don't want to be tied down fulfilling people's orders, So all of that is automated in the background. I can put all of my time into growing the business and not worry about when someone buys something, it's all just happening in the background without me. I don't need to be there. Obviously, I keep an eye on things. My job is to manage. I'm a manager, so I manage, the orders that come through, make sure they're all good, make sure that our payment system is allocating the funds from that purchase to the correct person. And that was another thing. I don't want to have to do accounting every month to take all the sales, and then go, okay, well, Sam gets $8 for that. And then, because some people buy shirts from multiple different brands, in one order. So it's got to all be divvied up and stuff like that. And I said, if I couldn't solve this with an automated process, I'm not going to launch the company because I won't be successful, because I'll get to the end of the month and I'll be like, I cannot be bothered doing manual accounting on all the sales that have come through and then send people the money. So I was very fortunate to find a provider that I have to pay money for, but it is worth every single penny, is automatically synced to the shop. And
it's interesting you say all that, Dickie, because I actually work with some businesses professionally in the role that I do full time. I work with some business. I'm trying to be oblique, so I'm not giving things away. But I had a bit to do with a guy who selling collectibles, and he loved the specific kind of collectibles that he was doing, and he loved the physical things, and he created this business doing it. And he was saying, why am I not enjoying this? And I was sitting down and talking with him, and I said, well, it's because you've created a logistics business. Like, your business isn't these collectibles, it's a logistics business that you've got now. And I see businesses like that where, for instance, for yourself, like, you don't want to do these things, so you've had to work out, I don't want to be dealing with logistics all the time because that's just something that my brain doesn't want to do. I don't want to be working with I don't want to be doing bookkeeping and accounting all the time. Yeah, it's great that you've been, I guess, able to do that and sort of automate the process so you can focus on the things that are good for you and that you're really good at, which is, you said the design, obviously. sorry, future podcast, you don't get Dickie's amazing designs the way that Social Suplex did, but you do get his passion and his customer service and what he's set up in Chop Tees.
Yeah, so and that was kind of the other thing too, because like if I was to replicate the Pro Wrestling Tees model, then the design process is also something that is automated. I touched on it before. It's self-service. If you're listening to this and you don't have a Pro Wrestling Tee shop, you might not know what I'm talking about. But when you get a store on their site, you get a login, and you log into the back end of the site, and there's a mock-up generator that you upload your design, and then when you're happy with it, pick the color of the shirt and set the price, and then hit a button and it goes off. I was going down that path as well. I wasn't super sold on doing that, but as time went on and the more people that I started to work with, the more I realized that people didn't really want to do that. They don't have the time, I guess, is the point. It's not, I heard Floyd on the All Elite podcast, All Things Elite podcast, say, well, we're finally getting merch. And he said, we would have had it already if I didn't work 80 hours a week. And it's the only reason that, people don't set this up themselves, kind of thing. So there were definitely things that could have been automated that I chose not to, because I felt that it would be more beneficial to the business and growing the business. I mean, I mentioned it at the start of the show. It's like, if I'd have just come to you guys and just been like, here's the link to upload your stuff onto shirts, pick the color, set the price or whatever. I mean, you guys just probably would have just been like, I don't know, and all this sort of stuff. But as soon as you go, look, all you need to do is just give me whatever artwork that you have. In your case, Sam, you didn't give me anything because you couldn't really. So in some cases, but in some cases, I didn't get anything. And it was like, just give me what you got. That's fine. And then you sit back, you do what you do best, and I'm going to do what I do best. And all you're going to have to do is say, yep, I like it, or nope, I hate it. And if you hate it, it doesn't go up because I'm not interested in, nothing goes up without people's approval. And if you like it, then, great. And I will always tell people, it's like, look, you will probably get a much better outcome if you commission an artist whose sole purpose is to do whatever, right? Like, for me, I have a much broader range of skills, which means I'm not as specialized in certain things. But of course, the benefit of what I did is that you guys paid for nothing, because the whole point is it comes onto my site, and it's all a big collaboration of, so no one's out of pocket for anything, kind of thing. But there's still that avenue. I'm not the be all and end all. And now that all the Social Suplex merch is up there, I am going to be kind of more just, I might come to you guys with an idea that I might have popped into my head, sort of thing. But the thing that I say to people is that I don't take requests. So, in a couple of weeks, if Rich came to me and it's like, oh, I was thinking, can you design me this or design me that? It's like, actually, I can't. Now, I may come up with something magically while I'm, mowing my lawn or something, and then I'll be like, oh, I'll put that on, that would be cool. Or I might be listening to one of your shows and get an idea or something. But that's the only way that it will happen from this point onwards. So, but it's still a beneficial arrangement. And sometimes, Sam, I may do things with the purpose of knowing maybe possibly in the future there could be ways to expand things. So there's a reason why your shirt just says the match guide and not the AEW match guide.
Yes.
Because what if you do a Ring of Honor match guide?
Very true.
What if? So it's the match guide podcast shirt, AEW 5-year anniversary edition. You may have another edition, sort of thing. Now, look, I've
picked up on that because when I started my Substack earlier this year, I specifically called it the match guide rather than the AEW match guide, because I plan on reviewing things and I already have reviewed things that aren't AEW on it. So you definitely picked up on that immediately. You do have like an incredible set of products on your site, and we are probably going to go full shill mode for a little bit, but what are some of the more interesting ones that you like on there? Like I love the pillars that you've got, the Long and Winding Road, the pillars shirt that you've got. I actually own it myself. That's one of the post wrestling ones you've got up there, but I know, like, I was flicking through things earlier and you've got like the 80s style track pants, the joggers with the laps fan on it. You've got, like this post wrestling button up with little P all over it, which I love. And then there's also some of the stuff you did for us. The Tunnel Talk stuff is hilarious and so suits the show. The drinkware and the pillow and the Snuggie and Imp's cup, even Imp's teacup that he's got. What are some of the things that you just kind of have a special place in your heart for on your site, Dickie?
It's going to sound like a corny answer, but they're all my favorites. I love all my children equally. No, well, look, it's not even about like specific things. I'll tell you, because like I mentioned before about how, originally I'd sort of like modeled this company off Pro Wrestling Tees. And it wasn't until I went over to WrestleMania earlier this year that I decided to change my vision for the company. Got rid of the idea that people would just upload their own stuff and I would take a lot more control over what products were made available, sort of thing. And the reason that I changed my vision is because I went to probably like more the GCW shows that I went to over WrestleMania weekend, where I really saw like the most hardcore of wrestling fans kind of in their element, and everyone was just wearing the most bold and loud clothes, hats and everything. And it was just like, I started to realize that the wrestling fan who goes to wrestling shows sort of wants to do. They want to stand out, I don't want to offend anybody, but I mean, we've all been to a wrestling show. Most people are there trying to get themselves over with chants and all these sorts of things. They want to be, part of the show, and that's kind of part of it as well. So like it originally went from, t-shirts, hats and hoodies to button-up shirts, Zubaz pants style joggers.
Yep. I couldn't remember what they were called, but Zubaz, the Laps fan Zubaz.
Yeah, those things exist because, again, it's all well and good just taking people's logos and then just like putting it on there. But if you start to understand who these podcasts are or who they're for and their audience. I mean, the Laps fans, it's in the title, they're Laps fans. It's back, of days of old when it used to be better, when, of course, health wise, it probably was absolutely not better. And the attitude era is definitely
culture wise.
Yeah, all that stuff. But in terms of, you've heard Tony Khan say like restore the feeling or whatever. And the whole Laps fan thing is like, fuck you, the feeling is dead. Like we will never have the feeling again. Let's talk about that. And so like I released this thing called the Lapsed Look. And so it was the Zubaz pants, zebra print, I should say, just to avoid trademark, Zubaz inspired, a fanny pack and a tank top. And it was just literally, I just found a photo of Scott Norton, and it looked like he was in Japan, and he had some geisha girls on either side of him, and he was just like flexing, and he's wearing pretty much that outfit, except that mine has, got all the Laps fan stuff all slapped across it. So it became more about getting really creative with it. And that's now where I'm putting my creative juices to stuff. It's not sitting down on Photoshop or Illustrator and actually designing stuff. It's coming up with these things. And so I guess if you were to put a gun to my head, Sam, and say, what is your favorite thing? I mean, and we're not shilling, but we are shilling. I mean, it has to be these jackets that I've personally designed in terms of, I mean, they're, two of them are varsity jackets, and the other one's a Ribera style satin jacket. And these are not print on demand products. So, all the stuff, like any shirt you buy from AEW and stuff like that, it's printed at the time, and you're very, very restricted. These jackets, I mean, I hired a garment maker, and I said, this is what I want. And we spent months and months and months like trying to sort this out. Trying to like getting it right, getting some test versions sent to me, which you may or may not have seen me like posing for, and they're incredible, and I'm so proud of them. And if you were to ask me, it's sort of like, where is the company going? This is something that I would want to do more of, which is inventory products. Think physical products that actually exist and sit in a warehouse. Those are the first. Those three jackets. You have the Laps fan varsity jacket, which is modeled after the old 1994 Raw is War varsity jacket that they had with the red leather sleeves, and it says Raw and War on the back, but it says the Laps fan on the back. And we have a Poison Rana varsity jacket, and then the shirt that you were talking about before, the Four Pillars Long and Winding Royal Road post wrestling design on a Ribera, I would say a Ribera style satin jacket on the back. And it's going to be a really interesting experiment, because when it comes to inventory products like this, like, I mean, you got to move them, because you got to pay rent. You got to pay rent. So every time that they, are up there, you can't just leave them in a warehouse all the time, because then you're just paying rent and not selling them, sort of thing. So it'll be really, really interesting. I don't know how much more I should discuss. So it may end up going on a rant about WWE versus AEW merch, but anyway.
Well, look, one of the things I love, as I've sort of said, is the creativity and the color. You mentioned the expression before. I made a joke before about no black T-shirts, and it's just because like I constantly see a sea of black shirts. And the Bullet Club Army has got a lot to do with it, to do with that as well. But it's a sort of a symptom of how the economy in wrestling shirts developed in that print on demand style that you said, and seeing the stuff that you've come up with, I don't know, to me it's been a breath of fresh air just seeing the sort of stuff that's going up there, and I'm really proud to see what you've done with the match guide, and as I said, the other stuff you put on Social Suplex in particular. It's bright, it stands out, and for me, honestly, like if anyone's out there and they have bought the AW Match Guide shirt or they plan on it, if you can get that thing on Dynamite, I'll find a way to buy you a beer. I'm not above bribery, but I'll find a way to shout you a beer. Dickie, I think we're sort of coming towards the end of things for us. My final question I've got for you is what's been a highlight for you since starting this business? As you said, it's still relatively new, but you have partnered with a number of media identities and brands in the wrestling sphere. We've talked about Post, Laps Fan, Grapple as well. You've recently launched a line with them, which is like once again, it's very unique to them. It looks a lot like the British suplex style that you see out there, and it's very clean and it's totally different from what you've got with Social Suplex, but totally suits those guys. What's a highlight for you? And feel free to just say the Social Suplex live launch that we just had on the weekend as well.
I did enjoy that. I mostly enjoyed it because I was not part of it. I say this just because, sometimes when we launch brands, that I get asked, you want to come on and launch it, sort of thing, and maybe I just get asked that because I haven't necessarily prepared those brands too much on the information that they maybe want to share with the viewers, like free shipping and you don't have to pay taxes and all these sorts of things. Maybe that's it, but I mean, you guys nailed it, and we had a lot of time to prepare that. But I mean, look,
it was. I'll say this: it was chaotic enough with 10 of us. We didn't need you on there as well to further create chaos.
No, I think that's kind of the key. Is like people don't realize that I'm not. This is not an interview that I do. Yeah, I have appeared on a couple of shows to help do a bit of promotion or whatever, but that's kind of like selling. I don't really like being in the spotlight because it's not about me. None of this is about me. Like I said, the reason that I started this was because I wanted to support the podcasters that I listen to, and for me, I wouldn't say it's a single highlight because it's happened multiple times now, but it is when a brand comes on board. Because, and this is going to sound pretty corny, but it's like, it means so much to me that a brand has given me the trust of not just their image and their identity on my site, not just the fact that, obviously part of the money that is paid goes to the content creators, right? So, they're trusting that I'm doing that correctly, but also, and most importantly, they've trusted me with their listeners. Look, I'm going to be very real because I don't say stuff like this that often, but I take it very, very seriously anytime one of your listeners is on my website. I feel like I have a duty of care to ensure they have a great experience. And if we're fortunate enough to have a transaction from one of them, that they are taken care of from start to finish. I do not ever want to hear a customer of mine go back to a podcast that they listen to and tell them that something was bad. I don't want that. So I will work as hard as possible to make sure that doesn't happen. And you don't want to hear that either, because it's one thing to be like, you could email customer service of Pro Wrestling Tees and say like, hey, I've been waiting for my order, or what's going on, or something's wrong with it or whatever. But what if they emailed the podcast host, the content creators, and be like, hey, this is faulty, this product that I bought. Like, now you're going to be like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do about it, kind of thing. So I guess my point is more like, I'm always what I'm building is like I'm almost kind of building my own personal like legacy in a sense that, every time that I have this catalog now that I'm extremely proud of, whether it is Social Suplex or Post Wrestling or Laps Fan or Poison Rana or WrestleNomics or Karen Peterson or Andrew Thompson or Kings of Sport, I am I'm so proud to have them on my site. And I consider it like a licensing agreement where, I don't own anything, but I'm the custodian of all of these things. And I will make sure that if somebody walks through the front door, that they are given the absolute best experience possible, whether it's things like free shipping, like the price you see is the price you pay, no grifting. I should start posting my own things in that grifter channel you talking about in the Discord about other retail sites and the shit that they do. I don't do that sort of thing because I just would not be able to sleep very well at night if I heard somebody say, like, oh, I thought I was getting this and then I got that. Sometimes it happens, you get faults and stuff like that, but you email it to us and we will sort you out. That's the sort of thing, because I just do not want, like yourself, Sam, to feel like, someone who really wanted to buy your shirt didn't get taken care of.
Well, look, I am very proud of what we've done. If you haven't already checked out the catalog we've got, the gallery, the absolute slew of merch that you can get for all of our shows that we've got. Every single show has got individual shirts. They've got hoodies. As I said, there's, Snuggies for Tunnel Talk. There's Imp's teacup. There's hats. There's there's just general Social Suplex shirts. And they're all very, very good to look at. They're really comfortable to wear as well. And right now, first orders get 10% off. So the first time you order through Chop Tees, you get 10% off. So the first time you go in there, you'll get a little cut from us. You get to steal from us a little bit, as Rich Ladder's been saying.
As he's been saying, but it's not true, because we take the cut on that, and we make sure the full support goes to the creators. But that's the thing. Like, we want people to sample product, So like. Yeah, there'll be a pop-up that comes up that says, hey, you want 10% off your first order, put your email in. And, it means that we're able to continue to let you know when some new and exciting stuff comes out, and pick Social Suplex as your favorite brand and any other favorite brands that you have. And you'll make sure that you only get emails related to those things. That's another thing that we do, is we make sure that you're not getting stuff from other brands that, you may not listen to or care about, sort of thing. So that's sort of what we're doing. So 10% off first order, and shipping is free for the vast majority of the world: US, Canada, UK, the European Union, Australia, and New Zealand. There's no taxes that you'll see at checkout. There's no handling fees. Way.
No taxes at checkout.
That's right. No. I think it's only the US that does it, to be honest. I think everywhere else the price is what the price is.
The price is the price.
Yeah. So all those things, and we get things out there very, very fast. We're very environmentally friendly as well. Our emissions output is like a tenth of what it would be if we shipped everything from a location in Central America, the middle of the United States, not Central America. That's a different place. But yeah, so look, all I would say is that if you have got this far into the podcast, just give it a go. Like, it's free shipping, so there's no penalty for only just buying one thing. You could buy one thing and then the next day buy another thing and not feel like, oh, I could have bundled them together and saved on my shipping. It's free shipping. So, I try to just make it as, no excuses. There's no excuse to check it out. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show to give the spiel at the end.
My pleasure, Dickie. It's a great way to support the network. And as I said, the first person to get a match guide shirt on camera in AEW gets a free beer. I'll find a way to make that happen. So whoever gets it, or drink of your choice. If you don't like beer, I'll pay for your wine. I'll pay for your Coke Zero, whatever your drink of choice is. But yeah, look, thank you for coming on, Dickie, and thanks for the work that you've done. It's been fascinating to hear about your philosophy behind chopped teas. I didn't expect to get that deep into it, but and your philosophy behind the design and everything. But it's always fascinating to hear the story of someone who's going out there, who's having a bit of a crack, who's trying to do things a little bit differently as well. So thanks very much for your time. Once again, chopped-tees.com/social suplex. And you can also follow Dickie on social media and Chopped Tees on social media. Do you want to just quickly plug where they can find you on Twitter and everywhere else, Dickie?
Yeah, at chopped_tees on X, Twitter, and same again on Instagram. Try to say, hey, give us a follow because we put a lot of stuff out there. We sometimes have flash sales, like we literally just finished one as you and I are recording now, sort of thing. That,
as I nearly accidentally said.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but those things, they're flash sales. They come out unannounced. So you didn't know that was going to happen. It just happened, sort of thing, and 24 hours, sort of thing. So yeah, give us a follow on those platforms, just because and again, we try and just put out relevant things. I think there's too much pollution in the world, not just in our air, but also on the internet. So I try to be very, very restrictive with what I put out there, and so that it's valuable content. So give us a follow on that. Otherwise, you can follow me personally at Dickie Bird Media on X or Twitter, where I maybe have a few more choice words about some of the certain things that I have seen. I haven't yet tweeted about the Dominic Mysterio toilet paper that WWE are selling today. Did you know about that?
It's a choice. I did not know about that, but that is certainly a choice, and I'd be interested to speak to someone who buys that. It's a collector's item, I guess. It's for the people who love it. Yeah, look, I don't expect we'll be putting anything out like that, but if that's something that you think would be enjoyable, then who am I to judge you? I've got a wrestling podcast. So look, and in that vein, if you have got this far into the show, please support all of the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. You can subscribe to us, you can rate us, you can give us 5 stars, but we do have all sorts of different podcasts. We've got All Things Elite, One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, Tunnel Talk, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Imp's WWE Adventure, and of course my show, the AEW Match Guide Podcast. And you can follow me on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. Also, watch this space, because we are thinking of doing future all-in shows like we did on the weekend. We won't have a big announcement plugging new merch every time, but we all had a great time on that YouTube live stream. We don't get to hang out as a whole crew very often, so even though it was chaotic, it was a lot of fun, and we've thought we may do that again. No promises, no dates yet, but just keep listening to the shows that you love, and we'll let you know if we've got something like that coming up. Once again, for the last time, and thank you very much, Dickie. And if you haven't checked out the stores, please do so. Great way to support the podcast network, and great way to support us. And thank you for listening, and I will see you again next time. Bye.